So at this time, I'd like to introduce Lisa Greenfield, the Midwest Regional Program Manager with the Center for Green Schools at USGBC. She is a powerful advocate for improving indoor air quality in schools. She has 20 years of experience as a public school and early childhood educator. She brings firsthand knowledge to her commitment, and that is of making clean air a cornerstone of student and staff health. So, Lisa, at this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to you.
Hi, everyone. Lisa Greenfield here. I am the Regional Program Manager with Center for Green Schools at USGBC, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you, Dr. Kavanaugh, for the invitation. As Dr. Kavanaugh said, I am a passionate indoor air quality specialist, and I am an advocate for healthy indoor air. And one of the reasons why I am such an advocate for healthy indoor air is because I spent 20 years in education, and a lot of those years were spent sick. We have a ventilation issue in our schools. And what I'm doing now with Center for Green Schools is bringing a cost-free opportunity to school districts nationwide to learn how to improve their indoor air quality. All right, so a little bit about what we're going to be covering today, indoor air quality facts and health effects in schools, protecting our most vulnerable, our children, the consequences and costs of inaction, and the ROI for improvements. And then lastly, we'll look at interventions and solutions for improving indoor air quality in our schools. And I like to start here with why does indoor air quality matter in our schools? Well, you're looking at why it matters right now. These students and our most vulnerable, they need to be able to go to school where it's healthy. And, every day, 60 million students occupy schools. And that's roughly 1/5 of our population spending their most productive hours indoors. And this massive daily occupancy makes indoor air quality critical. It's a critical public health issue, and it's also critical to educational success. And the impact of poor air quality is immediate and measurable. It degrades comfort and severely hampers concentration, academic performance. It's even linked to lower test scores. And it also can attribute to asthma, which is the leading cause of absenteeism in our schools. And studies show that ventilation and filtration improvements can significantly reduce asthma exacerbations and overall absences. And ultimately, we need to be thinking about the recent outbreaks of airborne disease. As we know, COVID isn't over, it's still here, and kids are getting long COVID, and measles has made a comeback. And we need to be mindful of the need to improve the indoor air quality in our schools so that disease transmission doesn't continue to happen like it has been. We can do better, we know how to do better, and our children, their attendance will improve, their test scores will be better, and all of this we know because studies have been done on this. The last slide in this deck will have all of my sources that I used and some of my favorite ones to share as well. All right. So here's some facts. If you didn't know these things, we spend over 90% of our day indoors, and we take roughly 21,600 breaths a day, more for children. So the quality of our air is critical, especially since if we're in a shared space, we're typically inhaling 3 to 5% of somebody else's exhaled air. And the indoor air quality is typically 2 to 5 times more polluted than outside air. And indoor air quality is now among the top 5 environmental dangers, and it contributes to 3.8 million premature deaths annually. And so it's a real problem. It's not something we can ignore anymore. All right. So children, they're uniquely vulnerable, and that's because their respiratory and immune systems are still developing. Their airways are smaller and more easily obstructed by inflammation, while their growing lungs remain highly susceptible to damage from environmental pollutants. Their vulnerability is compounded by the fact that children breathe faster and more frequently and inhale more air relative to their body weight. So they're basically processing more of that indoor air pollution than we do as adults. Even more reason for us to be mindful of what's in our indoor spaces and schools. So this higher exposure can lead to a risk for their immature immune systems and make them more susceptible to acute infections and can lead to chronic conditions like asthma, long COVID, and COPD later in life. Here are some of the health impacts that can come from poor indoor air quality. I won't go through all of these, but we know that children are particularly vulnerable to these things. So that can also lead to school absenteeism. And it also can affect their educational attainment. So the more frequent their absences, the more likely they are to fall behind. Some of the common indoor air quality pollutants in our schools, these are typically what you would consider pollutants. Particulate matter of 2.5 microns and smaller are those that get down into your lungs and can cross over into your bloodstream and get into your organs and can wreak havoc health-wise. You have volatile organic compounds, cleaning products. We have fossil fuel burning heaters in a lot of our schools, furnaces. So you have carbon monoxide as a danger, and it happens all the time. We see where they have to evacuate because of that. And then simple carbon dioxide alone, when you have a large number of people in a small space with poor ventilation, you're going to have an increase in that CO2 level, which can make you kind of sleepy and make it a little more difficult to concentrate, not at your best. And the inadequate ventilation allows all of that we exhale that could potentially be a virus or bacteria to build up in that space and more likely to transmit to others. So this is just a scale of what a micron size looks like, as well as where they end up in your respiratory system. So you can see down at the very smallest point, the deepest part of your lungs, or where those smaller microns can get into your smallest parts of your lungs and then transfer over into your bloodstream. If we look at poor indoor air quality in schools, we are also talking about our economy and the economic effects that it can have. And it extends far beyond health. Although we can be physically impaired by poor indoor air quality, when a student is sick and have to stay home and they're not old enough to be by themselves, they have to have a parent that stays home with them. And this causes their loss of income if they don't have benefits, paid time off. And this also causes them to fall behind in school. And there's lots of things that happen when our schools aren't up and going. And, we really experienced that during the shutdown and during the pandemic. And one of the key points I want to make is that we can't do that again. Like, we cannot shut down our schools again. We can't afford to lose so much of what we did. And that goes for society in general. Our society revolves around our schools and our children. And that's also, unfortunately, where you're going to find a lot of this stuff. Kids aren't always the best at respiratory hygiene, and that makes the possibility of them spreading airborne disease a lot more likely, unfortunately, which is just another reason for us to be mindful of practices that we can do, simply improving the ventilation by way of filtration or additional air exchanges per hour can significantly reduce the likelihood of transmission. All right. The critical link of indoor air quality and asthma. It affects 1 in 3 school-age children and is the leading cause for absenteeism. It can be exacerbated by allergens, cleaning chemicals, indoor pollutants, anything that we saw in that previous slide. And children with asthma are particularly vulnerable to even colds can cause an exacerbation of their asthma. And because they experience higher rates of illness because of that, they're also absent more frequently. So they struggle to keep up academically, and this increases the likelihood of them not graduating from school. And a really sad fact is 75% of people that are currently incarcerated did not graduate from high school. Does that mean they all had asthma? No, but what it does mean is when you have that cumulative loss of instruction time, you fall behind, and every year it gets harder to catch up and you end up falling behind. I really like this image here because it just shows you the reasons for absenteeism, but it also shows the ultimate outcome of what absenteeism can cause. So funding loss and educational attainment loss. So, how do we reduce infectious disease? And one of the best things we can do for safeguarding student and staff health is by reducing the transmission of airborne disease. And poor indoor air quality allows viruses and bacteria to accumulate due to inadequate ventilation, leading to higher exposure and transmission risks for the susceptible. And it's common for indoor pollutants like mold, dust, and VOCs to trigger respiratory illnesses such as asthma, making those students with compromised health more vulnerable to severe outcomes from infections. And this includes the long-term effects of cumulative respiratory disease. They're finding out that old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, they're finding out that that's really not true because the more respiratory infections a child has, the more likely they are to have long-term health effects from them. And sadly, measles, that's making a comeback, that if a child survives that, there's a chance that they have brain damage, but then also it wipes out their immune system completely. And it's so highly infectious. We really, really need to be thinking about how we get us back on track. But I digress. Mitigation strategies for improved outcomes. It's best achieved through a layered defense. And I'm sure that you're familiar with the Swiss cheese model. But ultimately, the more interventions we have in place, the better. And when we stack them together, it creates more barriers to prevent those airborne contaminants from spreading. So if we're only using one strategy, say like improving ventilation, that's great. We can even run the ventilation of ASHRAE 241 for infection risk management mode when we're having outbreaks. Personally, I think we should be running that all the time in our schools. But the more slices we add, the more prevention and reduction we can have from that. So filtration and ventilation are always the first place to start. Obviously, you want to remove the threat, but we can't always do that because kids are breathing, coughing, singing, sneezing, playing. And so they're there, and we have to make that space safe for them. We can also do that through upgrading our MERV rating on our HVAC systems for the filters in there, but we can also utilize HEPA filtration and air purifiers to get those really small particulates, like viruses can be in bacteria, also mold and allergens. Increasing mechanical ventilation. We can also do physical ventilation, like opening windows. but I'm coming to you from Iowa, in the middle of the United States. And in January and February, that's not an option. So we need to be thinking about where our schools are and how they can best be helped, which is one of the things that we're working on at Center for Green Schools, is bringing opportunities regionally that will make sense for those schools in that area. I happen to be covering the Midwest. So combining layers, adding air changes per hour so that we're reducing those pollutants that are in the air. And it's often been referred to as dilution. So that is also an opportunity. So key facts about improving indoor air quality, failing to address it results in substantial costs, including lost work, time, reduced productivity, expenses for the school. You could potentially have legal fees and even negative publicity. And proactive investment in indoor air quality can yield significant financial and operational returns. Some of the key benefits are increased productivity, and studies have shown that cognitive function improves and reduces errors, and that leads to higher test scores, which can really affect a school district and whether or not people want to move to a particular school district to have their children go to school there. So, ensuring compliance to the standards that are out there can only improve the environment and making it less of a liability. On this slide, I go a little more into the ROI of improving indoor air quality. And we've proven at Center for Green Schools that you can both have energy efficiency and improved indoor air quality. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And you can do this through improvements in, say, doing a ventilation assessment and not ventilating areas when they're not occupied. You can upgrade your fossil fuel burning furnace for an ERV. There's heat pumps. There's lots of different ways that we can get the ROI back from what we invest in. And simply investing in filtration alone, upgraded filtration, can bring 3 to 6 times the investment. And when you combine that with filtration and ventilation, it can be 8 times the return on investment for just those improvements. So in doing that, you have reduced exposure. So reduced illness, which means your average daily attendance is going to be better. And if you're a school district that gets their funding through the average daily attendance, that's going to help bring in more funding. You're also going to have reducing staff absenteeism, because we know that substitute teachers are so needed, but kids don't respond as well and don't learn as well with substitute teachers. And they cost the school district additional monies, especially when you're considering administrative costs just to line them up. I love this quote I found by W.E.B. Du Bois. We should measure the prosperity of a nation by the number of millionaires, not by the number of millionaires, but by the absence of poverty, prevalence of health, and the efficiency of the public schools. And those go together, I honestly believe, and the number of people who can and do read worthwhile books. But ultimately, the benefits of improved indoor air quality are individual, but they're also institutional and societal. And we are all products of our environment. What we eat and drink, including the air that we breathe, all affect our health. And by understanding the risks of inaction or failure to improve indoor air quality, or proactive solutions, we really need to be committing to improving indoor air quality in our schools so that we can collectively have a healthier, more productive society. Because if the kids are in school and learning, and they're graduating from high school and they're going on to be productive adults themselves, we are in a much better place. And I think a lot of times we forget that if we don't have a plan in place for improving indoor air quality, they say about failing to plan, you should plan to fail. We've already done that with COVID. We know what we need to do. We know how to do it, and we have the roadmap now. So we would definitely love to work with any schools, school districts who are looking to their learning environment safer and healthier for learning. And investing in schools is investing in our future because our future is in our schools, and that's our kids. And just to review a little bit of what we talked about, it's about improving indoor air quality through ventilation, filtration, upgrades, but you can also make that energy efficient as well. Would love to talk to anyone about that. And this is to protect our staff as well that are in schools. You know, if our teachers aren't well, they can't be at school teaching. So everything just runs smoother when the teacher's in the classroom. Investing improves the health, productivity, and financial stability of schools, and clean air enhances students' ability to focus, reduces transmission of illness, and fosters a more enjoyable learning environment, which is a true story. I became very sick from a environment that I worked in, teaching environment, and it was due to poor ventilation and underperforming HVAC system as well as moisture issues. And that being said, my story is not unusual. I've talked to many teachers throughout the years that have worked in buildings that have had deferred maintenance for far too long, moisture intrusion issues. There's just so many things we need to do and do it better. And I know the struggle is real when it comes to funds, but ultimately, a small investment can reap huge rewards when you consider the health that is achieved by doing that. All right. I would like to share our QR code here that you can scan and visit our website. If you're interested in learning more, you can fill out an interest form. I have a link up here for a walkthrough video and kind of teaching you how we go about implementing an indoor air quality plan for school districts. Everything that we offer is free. There's no costs involved and there's no commitment. It's just a willingness to want to do better for the schools. And lastly, my contact information here on the right side. And like I said, I oversee the Midwest here in the United States, but we have 4 other regional managers covering the rest of the country. And we're going to be working on this for the next 4 years. So we're excited to be able to be part of the solution for improving indoor air quality in our schools. And I'm so excited to be able to make a difference in this space. And the rest of the slide deck has resources. If you're interested in joining our network, we'll be sharing the slide deck, hopefully. If not, you can always contact me and I can share the slide deck with you. And just breezing through here real quick to give you an example of some of the things that we're working on for clean air in schools. You can take free courses that are offered through Center for Green Schools at USGBC. And we can help you write a comprehensive indoor air quality management plan. We can cover all of these things. We've been doing this for a while now, and now that we have the funding that we do, we've had more people brought on board, like our regional managers, to be able to help spread the word about our energy efficient IAQ management plan and toolkit, which you can see right here. And it has a comprehensive, everything that you can think of indoor air quality. There's a plan for it. There are templates. They're customizable so that every school district can make it their own. It's just a great starting point. Oftentimes, school districts don't know where to start, and they can start with us, and we can help them through this. Again, here's some links for our resources. But that is my presentation for tonight. And the last slide has some more sources on there and links that you can check out.
Well, thank you very much for an extremely interesting and important presentation.